Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. So you know, I was driving home last night thinking about everything that was going to happen today. The excitement, the pomp and circumstance, the building, bubbling anticipation leading up to that moment, that incredible moment when the Chancellor speaks on behalf of the Regents of California and confers upon you the degree Doctor of Medicine. And it suddenly struck me that other than the faculty here, everyone else, all of you, the people in the other hall too, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, significant others, friends, heck, even the dean and the chancellor, all of you have assumed that these soon-to-be doctors have actually learned something about medicine while they've been here at UCSF. But wait a minute, how do you know that that's really true? Oh, sure, for the parents here, I imagine there have been many times when your daughter or son have called and said, "Wow, I can't believe how much I'm learning," which you just accepted at face value and may have said something like, "Gee, honey, that's nice." And when they've come home, I'm sure you've been undoubtedly impressed with the fancy words they've accumulated. Instead of saying they're going for a walk, they say, "I'm going to ambulate." You have a little paper cut, and they say, "Oh, let me take care of that superficial laceration." And of course, what was once merely taking a pee is now evacuating my bladder. But I thought, you know, perhaps you deserve a direct demonstration of the incredibly intense, arduous, overwhelmingly difficult process these extraordinary people have been through. Perhaps you should witness firsthand them going through an actual examination of their medical knowledge and skills. In fact, I spoke to the dean about this last night, and he agreed with me that we'll have them go through one last final exam. Right here, right now. That they're required to pass before the dean will approve their having met the requirements for the degree Doctor of Medicine. Now, mind you, the graduates, or should I say potential graduates now, had no idea this was coming. But I know that they're not worried. For goodness sake, they were trained at UCSF. And I can tell you I'm not worried. In fact, I will stake my own medical career on the outcome that they will pass this very last of exams. If even one of them does not reach our incredibly stringent requirement of achieving more than 70% on all exams, I will personally eat my Harvard Medical School diploma, indecipherable Latin and all. Okay, so here we go. This morning, I randomly selected 3 questions out of the USMLE question bank. You know, odd, they all turned out to be neurology questions. Okay, so dear students, it's all on the line right here in the presence of all your family, let alone the dean and the chancellor. And, you know, this is all likely to end up on YouTube anyway, so the whole world is watching. Okay, so here we go. Pay attention. Here's the first question. A 26-year-old man comes into your clinic complaining of head pain. You instantly think about the possible causes. What is the UCSF clinical neuroscientist differential diagnosis of headache?
There are 2 types of headaches, new headaches and old headaches.
Very good. That's right. That's right. Okay. We're on a roll. Okay. The second question. What is the principal connectivity pattern underlying hypercolumn function within the striate cortex? Yes, you're right. We really don't know. You see, our students are really clear about what they do and not know. Okay. Final question. Concentrate here. Our honor is at stake. We're at 66.6%. Okay. What is the best screening test for upper extremity weakness? Exactly, yes. Dean Hawgood, I present to you the now fully approved candidates for Doctor of Medicine. Thank you. Gotcha. Well, on a slightly more serious note, And to do this, I'm sorry, I'm going to actually have to go over here because these comments are for the graduates. And I hope you don't mind, but I don't think you have much choice at this point. Okay. So I'm touched beyond words for the gift that you've granted me to share some thoughts with you, along with so many of your loved ones at this most momentous occasion of your lives. It's difficult to create any sense of intimacy in a place and in a time like this, but that's what I'd like for a few minutes. Speaking for the rest of the faculty, knowing how intertwined our lives have been over the past number of years, with the intensity of so many shared, varied experiences, how could we not want to take the opportunity to try and have a close, meaningful conversation, one in which we could convey our joy in seeing how much you've accomplished, our gratitude to you for allowing us to be part of your transformation into physicians, and our wishes for your future. I know that if you were dropping by my home to say goodbye, and we had a chance to chat for a while at the kitchen table, or if we were driving together to drop you off at the airport as you head off to the new place you'll be living in this next phase of your career, I'd use the occasion to give you just one piece of advice. I'll tell you about the simplest but most powerful tool that I know of for navigating the path ahead, and this is how I'd convey it. I wish I could show you a picture of what many mountaineers consider to be the most beautiful mountain in the world, a peak called Alpamayo in the Cordillera Blanca of Peru. From base camp, you can see that the only viable routes leading up to the summit are on narrow passages known in mountaineering terms as knife edges, perhaps 1 to 2 feet in places and dropping off thousands of feet to either side. The knife edges are the meeting point of two massive canted walls. The walls are opposing in the sense that they define the watershed of a huge mountain range. The world seems to fall away from either side. But the walls are also melded together in the sense that they essentially lean against one another, and they define a meeting point and a continuum of two vast regions. Navigating the path of the knife edge is, of course, a metaphor for the experience of life itself. For if you think about it, so many of life's experiences are characterized by the confluence of seemingly opposing forces, and our attempts to try to move through them with some sense of ease, if not fulfillment. Are you aware of them? Can you feel them? Who here, and I'm not just speaking to our graduates now, has not struggled to find a balance point between the joy of our successes, big and small, and the disappointment of our failures, also big and small, or the balance point between your memories and your dreams, between hope and reality, selflessness and selfishness, or gains and losses? How about that balance point between fear and courage? Look where all of you are right now. You've clambered your way through medical school, reached this temporary safe haven along the way, and soon it will be time to move on. What do you see in the path ahead? A safe, comfortable walk in the park? I doubt it. A knife edge? I think so. On one hand, you know you can forge ahead because you've just received the very best medical training that exists on the planet, and you've been given the tools to succeed with this phase in your career. We know this is true. You know this is true. But at the same time, as you contemplate what it'll mean to actually be a physician and have the responsibility for patients in your very own hands, as you imagine attendings and senior residents setting surely impossible expectations, at some level, you're probably looking at this next phase as I did years ago, yet another in a seemingly endless series of spectacular opportunities for failure. Let's look at another knife edge. How about gain and loss? As Ed described so eloquently, you've gained so much over the last number of years. My goodness, the list seems endless. Being chosen by society to enter this profession, the lifelong friendships you've made with each other, this first phase of the learning of medicine, your patients' stories, your experiences in foreign lands, your contributions to research, finding a partner, having a baby, gaining a deeper understanding of who you are and what you hope to achieve in your lives. But has your path through medical school been defined solely by all these gains? In fact, there have been losses, big and small. Not doing as well as one hoped for on an exam or in a clinical rotation. Making an outright mistake that brought harm to a patient. Messing up and losing a friend. Feeling at times an erosion of your sense of humanity. Watching one of your patients die. Losing a loved one. But along with your own list of disappointments and losses, all of you, by bearing witness to what goes on in the care of patients, have been handed one of the greatest lessons of life, something that all the older people in this audience know through their own experiences. And that lesson is the following. If you are healthy and content, then the only difference between you and the person who is suffering is your current good fortune. Nothing more, nothing less. Sure, there are benefits of making good decisions about the care of our bodies, not drinking and driving and so forth, but the bottom line is, as you've seen firsthand countless times now in your training, it is a thin and ephemeral veil that separates ourselves from our patients, ourselves and those who are suffering. And out of this realization rises an essential question. How prepared are you for passing through that veil? What if you find yourself falling towards fear or failure? What if reality wins over hope? And if it's impossible to keep from falling, how do we recover? And how do we reconnect with balance and purpose and fulfillment in our lives? Which brings me to my piece of advice. You know, there are a whole number of items of equipment and tools that you need to safely climb the knife edges of Alpha Mile. Warm clothes, goggles, crampons, ice axe, harnesses, rope, carabiners, and an essential piece of equipment called anchors. Anchors. These are lightweight aluminum, very, very strong I-beam-like devices that you can hammer deep into the ice or snow, and to which you can connect your rope so that you minimize the chances of a dangerous or deadly fall. The anchor not only arrests the fall, it can also help you feel more grounded because it lessens your fear of falling. So what are your anchors? What are your anchors? Think about it. What are your anchors? What have you used thus far that's been a source of enduring and constant support? How about pure self-reliance and a deep belief in yourself? Probably true for most of you, at least some of the time. And there's no doubt that this has served you well up to this point, and it'll certainly be a source of balance and assuredness going forward. What are your anchors? How about loving family and friends? Of course, I hope you nurture them and support them because you need your loved ones as much as they need you. Quite simply, the path ahead is too difficult to traverse alone, and you'll need those special relationships in your life as guides, as sources of encouragement and respite, and as a means of getting pulled back up to safety when you fall. What are your anchors? How about your passion for life and making the world better? Of course, each of you have been driven in some way to pursue your calling. This has enabled you to stay focused on the route ahead, to ignore the steep drops on either side, and to know that this is the path that you were meant to climb. So, these are all critical supports, critical anchors, but I don't think they're enough. And I want to tell you about one more tool to add to your climbing rack. It's an anchor that was taught to me by a great teacher, and it could be described as a practice to nourish the spirit, a spiritual practice. Now, I need to tread carefully here. I don't want to suggest that I have a particular point of view that is any better informed than the many, many spiritual practices that exist in this hall, that people everywhere may follow. And also, in the spirit of full disclosure, I must tell you, I'm not a religious person to any degree. However, I do believe in the core of my being that there is a mystery and a wonder to life, and we are part of a greater presence. If you believe in these or related concepts, then you can understand my description of spirituality. Your sense of spirituality serves as a connection to the patients you will care for, to the purpose of your work, but is also an essential aspect for creating some context with which to understand the loss and suffering that you will continue to witness every day as doctors. Oh, that poor baby. He's so sad. Yeah. Needs a binky. Needs a binky. Where was I? That's right. So it's really an essential aspect for creating some context with which to understand the loss and suffering that you'll continue to witness every day as doctors. And given the constant presence of that ephemeral veil I mentioned earlier, it's an essential means for dealing with the personal loss and suffering that will come your way as well. Now, if any of you have been disinterested or have dismissed the notion of spirituality, I want you to know that I'm speaking to you as well. As life unfolds, remember my suggestion and try to use it in particularly rough times. So, what's the simple and powerful tool? What's this spiritual practice? It's called saying your mantra. Now, I know you've heard the term. It's often misused, misapplied, not understood. A mantra is a word or phrase that is connected to a great spiritual tradition. As my teacher wrote, the mantra is a short, powerful spiritual formula for the highest power we can conceive of, whether we call it God or the ultimate reality or the self within. Whatever name we use, with the mantra we are calling up what is best and deepest in ourselves. The mantra has appeared in every major spiritual tradition, West and East, because it fills a deep, universal need in the human heart. The required characteristics of the mantra are the following. First, it should be a word or short phrase. Second, it should channel the ideas of spiritual traditions that have withstood the test of time. And third, it should resonate within your inner self. So here are some examples. From the Christian tradition, Lord have mercy, Lord Jesus Christ, or my God and my all. From the Hindu tradition, Krishna, or Gandhi's mantra, Rama, Rama, Rama. From Judaism, Baruch atah Adonai, blessed art thou, King of the universe. From the Muslim tradition, Bismillah ir-Rahman ir-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate. From Buddhism, Om Mani Padme Hum, which refers to the jewel in the lotus of the heart. There are many spiritual traditions, some of which, like the Native American tradition, focus on the natural world. But the point is to choose a mantra that has been passed down carefully through generations of seekers. The underlying idea with any of these mantras is that the act of saying these silent words connects you to something much greater than yourself. Gradually, if we repeat it often, it is said that the mantra can permeate and utterly transform our consciousness. When I repeat my mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, I am instantly reminded of the spirituality, of the sacredness of life, of what is most important. It's an anchor that, when I really pay attention, allows me to see things in a larger context. And what is most amazing and ridiculously obvious, my mantra is always there, instantly accessible, no matter what the circumstance I happen to be in. I try to repeat my mantra every time before I see each patient, before I give each lecture or a commencement address, before meeting with my patients' families, when kissing my wife in the morning, as I hug my children coming home from school, if I'm angry or impatient or frustrated, when things seem out of control, or when I find myself thinking about the loss of someone I love so dearly. My mantra anchors me firmly along the meeting point of those two massive canted walls that I find myself traversing. And when I keep it at the forefront of my mind, the mantra reminds me of our humanity, of the arc of time, of the wonderful mystery that connects each of us to one another. So there you have it, my one piece of advice. A simple message, really. You know, when you give a commencement address, you hope that someone will remember at least one thing next week, let alone 10 years from now. That's my one piece of advice, a simple message. Take care of your spiritual roots by choosing and practicing the silent repetition of a mantra. I know from experience that it can turn fear into fearlessness, selfishness into selflessness, sorrow into joy. But wait, you're UCSF graduates. You know all about hypothesis-driven research. Just take my message and turn it into an experiment. Specifically, try the mantra and let your own experience be the guide. Okay, it's time to move on. Speaking again for the faculty, our hearts are aglow with joy, with love, and our hopes for each and every one of you. There will be no more dallying. Check all your gear and head on out, and for goodness sake, don't forget the anchors. As for me, I'll be thinking of you as you ascend the knife edge of Alpamayo, and you can be sure I'll be saying my mantra for you. Thank you.